Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Sunday, July 16th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the San Francisco Giants taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. No official starter for San Francisco. Could be another bullpen game for the Giants. It's Valdo Beto going for the Buccos. Beto's got a 4.44 ERA, but a 5.1 xFIP, and a lot of that's because of his control. In AAA, he had a 4.23 walk per nine rating, and in the Major League level so far, a 3.7 walks per nine. And you look at San Francisco, in the last 30 days, they're above average in walk percentage as a team against righties. I like their matchup here against Beto. I think they'll be able to get on the board early and often. And, on the other side, the San Francisco bullpen, like I mentioned, it's been a very good bullpen this year. The Pittsburgh Pirates offense against lefties and righties has not been very trustworthy in the last month or so. So I like San Francisco in this matchup on the road on the money line. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Atlanta Braves. We're going to see Dylan Cease and Colby Allard on the mound in this one. Now, on paper, when you see Dylan Cease, the best starting pitcher in the White Sox rotation, facing a lefty, we know the White Sox traditionally have hit lefties pretty well. You would think that this would be the game that the White Sox had the best chance at winning or competing in this series. And while that may be true, I still don't love the White Sox in this game. Overall, Chicago in the last 30 days has not been very good against left-handed pitchers, and I do think that Colby Allard is actually a lot better than his current ERA. I think we're actually going to find some value betting on him in the future. Chicago in the last 30 days is 20th in baseball in team OPS against lefties. They're 20th in isolated power, and they have a pretty steep strikeout rate of 24.8%. So I do think Allard pitches well. Dylan Cease may be the best starting pitcher in this White Sox rotation, but he still hasn't had a great season in 2023. He struggled in his last game before the All-Star break, giving up 11 base hits and 5 earned runs against the St. Louis Cardinals. Now you're facing the Atlanta Braves, the best lineup in baseball against righties. Give me the Atlanta Braves here on the money line at Truist Park. Next up, it's the Miami Marlins taking on the Baltimore Orioles. No official starter for the Fish right now, but we should see Kyle Bradish going for the O's. Kyle Bradish has been Mr. Consistency as of late. His last 5 starts, 2 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those games. He's gone 6+ innings in 4 of 5. He's had 5+ strikeouts in his last 4 starts. He's 3-1. The Orioles are 3-1 in his last 4 outings with wins over the Rays, Mariners, and Yankees. Not bad teams there. I think Bradish pitches pretty well. I mean, the Marlins are a pretty tough matchup. They do a good job at getting on base, limiting strikeouts, and they have Luis Arraez at the top of that lineup. But I still think Bradish pitches well in this game, gives the O's 6-7 strong innings. The bullpen behind him should be able to get the job done. And Miami's got a decent bullpen this year. They certainly made some improvements there. But for a bullpen game, or if this is going to be a spot starter, I just don't love their matchup against a very tough Baltimore Orioles lineup that plays well at Camden Yards. Give me the Baltimore Orioles here on the money line in a lean. Next up is the San Diego Padres taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Seth Lugo and Zach Wheeler are your starters. I'm going to take the plus money here with San Diego. Zach Wheeler, the Phillies are 6-0 in his last 6 starts, and that includes his last 3 games where he really wasn't that sharp. And 16 1/3 innings of work, 12 earned runs. So far in July, he's got a 5.73 ERA. But now you're facing the Padres, who have really improved their numbers against righties as of late. In the last 30 days, San Diego number 3 in baseball in WRC plus against righties, while the Phillies ranked 23rd in that statistic. Seth Lugo on the other side has been very sharp for San Diego as of late, 3 earned runs or fewer in each of his last 4 starts. I'm going to take the Padres here plus money on the money line. I think Wheeler takes a loss in this one. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're to see a pair of southpaws on the mound in this one, Tommy Henry and Yusei Kikuchi. Now, I don't love the matchup here for Arizona. Tommy Henry has not pitched too well on the road this year. Even though he's 4-0 in the win-loss record, he's got a 4.73 ERA and 32 1/3 innings of work. Only 27 strikeouts with 12 walks and 8 home runs to go with it, and a much higher opponent's batting average as well. Toronto doesn't have the best numbers against lefties. They're right around league average in the last 30 days, but they're much better than Arizona's as of late, where you look at the Diamondbacks, in the last month, they're 29th in baseball in team OPS and 30th in WRC plus against lefties, also 27th in isolated power. Yusei Kikuchi's pitched pretty well at Rogers Center this season. I like his matchup here. Give me the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the New York Mets. Bobby Miller and Max Scherzer are your starters. This is a big game for the New York Mets. Max Scherzer facing his former team in this one. We know he struggled before the All-Star break, giving up 4 and 5 earned runs in his last 2 starts against the D-backs and the Padres. A lot of home runs to go with it in those games. but both of those starts were on the road. And at Citi Field this year, Scherzer's been pretty much what we expect. I mean, a sub-3 ERA, 27 and a third innings of work, 31 strikeouts, low opponent's batting average, only 3 home runs allowed. I think Scherzer pitches pretty well in this game, but I also think his bats are going to back him up. Bobby Miller, I see a lot of potential in his game, and we saw at the beginning of the season he was, razor sharp for Los Angeles, but now he's starting to regress a little bit. He's giving up a lot of sharp contact and home runs. We saw in his last start against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2 home runs and 4 earned runs against the Pirates team has been one of the worst lineups in baseball against righties as of late. Now you go on the road in New York, a very tough place to pitch, and face a New York Mets team that's desperate and is top 10 in baseball in both isolated power and team OPS against righties in the last month. Give me the New York Mets here on the money line at Citi Field. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Adrian Hauser and Ben Lively are your starters. I like the over in this game. An afternoon game at Great American Ballpark. I think we see runs early and often. I don't really trust either of these starting pitching options. Adrian Hauser and Ben Lively both have sub-4 ERAs, but expected numbers that are really concerning, and I expect some regression in both of their games going forward. Hauser, a 3.68 ERA, but a 4.32 expected ERA, 4.66 xFIP. Lively on the other side, a 3.83 ERA, 4.81 expected ERA. I like both of these lineups to do a lot of damage early, but both of these bullpens have not been very trustworthy this season. The Cincinnati Reds in the last month have the 3rd highest Sierra bullpen as well. Give me the over here in Milwaukee, Cincinnati. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Kansas City Royals with Zach Eflin and Jordan Lyles on the mound. I've mentioned that there just hasn't been a lot of value in this series yet, but I do think with Jordan Lyles, he's been pitching a lot better as of late. We know that his only win of the year was against these Tampa Bay Rays at Tropicana Field. He went 6 innings of 4-run baseball, but it was good enough for the Royals to win 9-4 the final score. His last start against the Guardians, he went 5 innings of 1-run baseball, 5 strikeouts against a team that does not strike out much, and no walks in that game as well. So Lyles is really improving his game. Zach Eflin's not been very good on the road this year. Tropicana Field's got really good numbers, but a 4.65 ERA away from the Trop, a 1-3 record and 40 2/3 innings of work, a 256 opponent's batting average on the road compared to 204 at home. I think if there was a game in this series that Kansas City had the best chance of competing in, this would be the one. Give me Kansas City plus the 1.5 runs at Kauffman Stadium. Next up, we go to St. Louis as the Nationals take on the Cardinals. Josiah Gray and Jack Flaherty are your projected starters. We saw the same pitching matchup back on June 19th. It was an 8-6 win for St. Louis. Both starting pitchers struggled in that game, gave up 6 runs each in that start. But, Josiah Gray, that was a home game for him at Nationals Park. We know he's really struggled at home with just this year with a 5.2 ERA in 36 1/3 innings. But on the road, he's got a 2.39 ERA, a winning record of 4-3 for a losing team in 64 innings, 61 strikeouts. So he's got a higher strikeout rate, a lower walk rate, a lower home run rate, and he's got a lower opponent's batting average by about 50 points, 236 compared to 284 at home. I'm willing to back Josiah Gray at a really good price here on the road, and even though he's facing a pretty tough team, in St. Louis that hits righties pretty well, Jack Flaherty, I just don't love his game right now. Even though he improved before the All-Star break, he's not pitched very well at Busch Stadium this year. A 5.86 ERA in 35 innings at home. His control's been the big problem for him when he's pitching at home. 22 walks allowed in those 35 innings. The Washington Nationals do a good job at limiting strikeouts. We're getting a really good price with them. Give me the Nationals on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Chicago Cubs. We're going to see Cutter Crawford and Justin Steele on the mound in this one. I like the Red Sox in this game. Justin Steele's a really solid pitcher for Chicago, but the Red Sox have really good numbers against lefties in the last month. Cutter Crawford, I think, is better than his current ERA. I expect some positive regression going forward, and I also like when he's pitching on the road. He struggled at Fenway Park, but in 34 innings on the road at 2.91 ERA, a 1.00 whip, and 33 strikeouts in those 34 innings with only 4 walks allowed, so his control's been a lot better when he's pitching away from Fenway Park. And, even though he's had his struggles in his last few starts, the Red Sox are still 3-1 on the money line in those last 4 games. I like the Boston Red Sox here at a really solid price at Wrigley Field. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Texas Rangers. Tanner Bybee and Martin Perez are your starters. Martin Perez struggled in his last home game against the Houston Astros, but that's a Houston Astros team that A, has seen Perez a ton over the last couple of years, and B, the Astros just hit lefties well in general. They limit strikeouts, they get on base, they have pretty good power numbers. Now you're facing the Cleveland Guardians, who do limit strikeouts, but don't really have the best numbers against lefties this year or in the last 30 days, where they're below average in team OPS, isolated power, and WRC+. in the last month. So I do think Perez, who overall this year has pitched better at Globe Life Field, will have a bounce back outing here. And I'm also a little bit concerned with Tanner Bybee. I watched his last couple of games. You look at his final lines, they haven't been too bad. 5 innings, 1 run in his last start against the Royals. It was good enough for a Guardians win in the end, but his control was off in that game. And Bybee's had 3 or more walks in 3 of his last 4 starts. So the control's a concern for me. The Rangers do a really good job at getting on base. We obviously know they have a lot of power in that lineup. I think Bybee could be in trouble here. He's had a pretty weak strength of schedule as of late. I think it comes back to bite him in this one. So give me the Texas Rangers on the run line at Globe Life Field. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Colorado Rockies. Garrett Cole and Chase Anderson are your starters. As much as the Yankees offense has struggled, and we saw in the first game of this series, they looked pretty hopeless at the plate in that game, even at Coors Field. I still got to take the Yankees in this matchup on the run line. Garrett Cole, he's the much better starting pitcher. He's had good numbers at Coors Field in his career. Chase Anderson's 0-4 now with a 6.89 ERA. He had a really good start to the year with Tampa Bay in his first few outings with the Rockies. But since then, you look at his last 4 starts alone, 7 earned runs against the Braves, 9 earned runs against the Angels in that 25-1 loss, 6 earned in a 14-3 loss to the Dodgers, and then his last game against the Astros, 4 innings, 5 earned runs, and 3 home runs. Give me the New York Yankees here on the run line. Next up, it's the Minnesota Twins taking on the Oakland A's. We're going to see Joe Ryan and J.P. Sears on the mound. Joe Ryan was not in good form going into the All-Star break. We saw his final 3 games before the break, giving up 8 home runs combined in those starts, including 2 home runs against the Orioles in 4 1/3 innings in a 15-2 Twins loss where he gave up 5 earned runs. His strikeout numbers have been there, but he's still giving up a lot of sharp contact. And J.P. Sears on the other side, it's a tough matchup for the Twins bats. He's got a 3.97 ERA this season in 99 2/3 innings. The Twins have, in the last 30 days, they're 27th in team OPS, 22nd in isolated power against lefties. I'm going to take the Oakland A's here plus the 1.5 runs at home at the Coliseum. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Seattle Mariners. We're going to see Reese Olson going for Detroit, no official starter for Seattle. I'm going to take the under in this game in a lean right now. We're at a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. Reese Olson has some starting pitching experience, even though he's been out of the bullpen as of late. But in 33 1/3 innings of work, 35 strikeouts, a decent ERA at 4.05, and better numbers on the road with a 3.09 ERA. I think he pitches pretty well. It gives the Tigers 4 or 5 good innings. On the other side, we'll have to see who the Mariners decide to go with, but we know they have a pretty solid bullpen. The Tigers' offense has not been great in 2023. Give me the under here in Seattle-Detroit in the lean. And the final game for Sunday's card in Major League Baseball, it's your Sunday Night Baseball contest on ESPN, an AL West rivalry between the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Angels. Christian Javier and Tyler Anderson are your starters. Give me the over in this game. You got Christian Javier really struggling before the All-Star break. He gave up 8 earned runs, 6 earned runs, and 4 more earned runs in his final 3 games. One of those starts was at home. 2 of those starts were on the road. And overall this year, a 5.47 ERA for Javier away from Minute Maid Park. The Angels, obviously without Mike Trout, but still a decent lineup against right-handed pitching. Tyler Anderson on the other side, a lefty. The Astros have hit lefties very well this season. They do a good job at limiting strikeouts, and I don't like Anderson's chances at all in this game. Give me the over here in Houston, Los Angeles. And that's it. Those are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.